Chapter 7. Where do seeds come from? Nothing grew. Our garden was the worst garden in the history of gardens. The next day, Miss Nichols arrived on her tractor, wearing a t-shirt that said, "I'm rooting for you," on it. Well, the tractor wasn't wearing the t-shirt. Miss Nichols was. It would be weird for a tractor to wear a t-shirt or any kind of clothing. Miss Nichols had a box with her. She was looking at her pathetic garden, our pathetic garden, when Miss Stoker came out of the school. "I just wanted to see how you kids were making out." "Ugh, gross," we all replied. "We're not making out." "Our garden is terrible," admitted Andrea. "Gardening can be very difficult," said Miss Stoker. "One time I tried growing fungi, but it didn't grow at all. I guess there was a mushroom for improvement." "Get it? Mushroom?" We all laughed, even though Miss Stoker didn't say anything funny. "Yeah," she continued, "I know a guy who dug a deep hole in the garden and filled it with water." I think she meant well, got it? But seriously, the whole garden flooded. It turned out there was a leak in it. Got it? There was a leak in the garden. She kept telling jokes for a while. We asked Miss Nichols why nothing grew in our garden. She told us she knew from the start that nothing would grow. "Why didn't you tell us?" asked Neil. I wanted to teach you youngs a lesson," said Miss Nichol. Miss Nichol explained. "Lollipops, candy canes, and donuts don't grow out of the ground." "What about chicken trees?" I asked. "Nope, bummer in the summer." But Miss Nichols told us if we wanted anything to grow in the garden, we'd had to plant normal stuff like cucumbers, tomatoes, and zucchinis. She opened a box that she was carrying. It was filled with little bags of seed. She got down on her knees with us and showed us how to plant the seeds. "What do seeds come from?" Miss Nichols asked Andrea, who had to know everything so he could be smarter than everyone else. "Seeds come from fruits and vegetables," replied Miss Nichols. "So, where do fruits and vegetables come from?" Andrea. "They come from seeds," said Miss Nichols. "And where do seeds come from?" asked Andrea. "They come from fruits and vegetables," said Miss Nichols. "But where do fruits and vegetables come from?" They went back and forth like that for a while. We planted a bunch of seeds and waited water them with a watering can, and then we waited and waited and waited. Nothing grew. It was frustrating. Maybe our dirt was not good. Maybe we didn't water the seeds enough. Maybe we watered it too much, or maybe we were just terrible gardeners. In the afternoon class, we were talking about all this stuff, and you'll never believe who walked into the door at that moment. Nobody. Who walks into doors? We went over that in chapter 1, but you'll never believe who walked into the doorway. It was Uncle Fred. He used to be the host of the Kids TV show, but now he's our music teacher. It's a long story. You can read a book about it in a book called Uncle Fred is a Knucklehead. "I heard about your garden," Uncle Fred said. "I think I know what to do. Follow me." And we followed Uncle Fred out to the garden. He opened up his backpack and took out a violin. "I know for a fact that zucchinis like soothing music," said Uncle Fred. "It helps them grow. So I'm going to play Beethoven for your zucchini. He played Beethoven in the garden for 1,100,000 hours. The whole time we looked at the dirt to see if anything popped through the surface. Nothing. I guess the zucchinis didn't like Beethoven after all. Chapter 8. Magic Veggies. Everyone was sad that nothing was growing in our garden. It looked like Emily was going to cry as usual. I guess we are just terrible gardeners. You kids need to be patient, Miss Nichols kept telling us. Why should I be patient? I replied. I'm not sick. But the next morning, the weirdest thing in the history of the world happened. We went outside to check on the garden, like we did every day. Miss Nichols wasn't at school yet, but Mr. Tommy was watering the garden with a hose. And you'll never believe what we found out there. Veggies. Yes, the garden was filled with veggies. Big tomatoes and zucchinis and cucumbers and lots of other veggies I couldn't name because I don't eat that stuff. There was even some bananas. It was amazing. They grew suddenly out of nowhere, and they were fully grown and all over the garden. Yee-haw, we all shouted. Yahoo! Everyone was buzzing. Isn't this wonderful? Asked Miss Tony. We can eat some of these veggies for lunch today, said Brian, who will eat anything. We picked up the veggies and put them into bags that Mr. Tony gave us. Hey, wait a minute, Andrea suddenly shouted. I don't think these veggies grew in our garden. What makes you think that? Asked Michael. They have price tags on them, said Andrea. What? Andrea was right. She showed us tomatoes with a little tag on it that said 3 for $1. Somebody bought these veggies in a store, Andrea shouted, then put them in our garden so we would think we grew ourselves. What? Why would who would do a thing like that? Andrea looked at Emily. Emily looked at Michael. Michael looked at Alexia. Alexia looked at me. I looked at Neil. Neil looked at Andrea. Everybody was looking at everyone else. Finally, Miss Tony turned off the hose and stepped forward. It was me, he said sadly. Gasp! We all gasped. I admit it, said Miss Tony. I was at the supermarket last night and I bought those veggies. Why? Asked Andrea. I was so disappointed that your seeds weren't sprouting, Miss Tony said, and you kids looked so sad. It's okay, said Alexia, patting Miss Tony on the back. You were only trying to make us feel better. At the moment, Miss Nichols arrived on her tractor wearing a t-shirt that said, I wet my pants on it. Well, the tractor wasn't wearing the t-shirt. She was. You can't fit a you can't fit a t-shirt on a tractor. What's up, y'all? Miss Nichols asked as he hopped off the tractor. Miss Tony bought veggies at the supermarket, said Neil. He put them in the garden so we would think we grew them. Miss Tony is full of baloney, I added. I'm sorry, said Mr. Tony, hanging his head. That's when the weirdest thing in the history of the world happened. I'm not going to tell you what it was. Okay, I'll tell you, but you have to read the next chapter, so Nana boo on you. Chapter 9. We actually grew something. Everyone thought it was hilarious that Miss Tony bought veggies in the supermarket and put them on our garden to make us feel better. Even Miss Nichols laughed about it. And then, after we picked up all the store-bought veggies, she noticed something. Well, looky here, Miss Nichols said. We all leaned closer, and there it was. It was small, but it was there. A little sprout. I reckon it's zucchini sprouts, said Miss Nichols. Yeehaw, we all shouted, Yahoo! It was a miracle. We were all yelling and screaming and yeehaw. hooting and yee-hawing. We did it, shouted Alexia. We actually grew something, shouted Michael. It was just a tiny sprout, but everybody was dancing around it like we had just won the Super Bowl. I had to admit that it was pretty cool. I hate veggies. Miss Nichols told us to simmer down, whatever that means. She said we would need to keep watering and tending to the garden to make sure the sprout would survive and the other veggies would grow. Over the next few days, lots of sprouts started sprouting. Tomato sprouts, cucumber sprouts, zucchini sprouts, cantaloupe sprouts, even banana sprouts. Andrea said bananas had to grow on trees, but what does she know? What does she know? All kinds of fruits and veggies were busting all over. Every morning, we would rush to the garden to see what had popped out of the garden. You should have been there. We watched the veggies grew with our own eyes. Well, it would be pretty hard to watch them with somebody else's eyes. The veggies were getting bigger every day. Soon, they would be ready to harvest and eat. That's when the weirdest thing in the history of the world happened. One morning, we rushed to the garden. Miss Nichols and Mr. Tony was already there. I couldn't tell something was wrong. They had on frowny faces. Uh-oh, as Miss Nichols said as she examined the zucchini. We have a problem. What's the matter? Mr. Nichols asked Emily. Are you young, sitting down? Miss Nichol. Oh no, any time a grown-up has a bad news to they always ask if you're sitting down first. Nobody knows why. We all sat down on the ground next to the garden. Some rascal, said Miss Nichols, took a bite out of the zucchini.